Welcome to episode 3 of the Mile 62 podcast. I'm your host, Richard Elkins, coming to you from Austin, Texas. We cover everything ultra running in the southern United States. Today's podcast, I plan on doing a review of Ultra shoes. Ultra is one of the big names in trail running. You have Ultra, you have Hoka, and a few other brands. Before I get started, I would talk about something that's been bothering me lately. Some of the race directors don't use UltraSignup, and I'm really pro UltraSignup. Why? Because it keeps track of all your races, and just a great database, and they're very organized. I've heard interviews with the guy that started UltraSignup, and they really know what they're doing. Earlier this spring, I joined a new series of races, 3 races in the Austin area. And before I enter races, I usually ask them if they use UltraSignup or post the data to UltraSignup, which is really what I'm looking for. And the race director told me, yes, we do. We've done that in the past. So I signed up for all 3 races. The races were over 3 months, and after I finished them, the first race they didn't post it, so I figured, well, after 3 races, maybe they'll post all the data. I never posted the race results to UltraSignup. Contacted the race director, and I told him that the co-race director told me that the data would be posted to UltraSignup, and that was the reason I decided to try out the races. And they got back to me saying that they don't do that, and they don't feel that it's important. That really kind of irritated me, and I plan not to do their races anymore. It's kind of unfortunate because they did a good job putting on the race. They were shorter distance races, 30 Ks, and very local in the Austin area. Enjoyed them, but it just really rubbed me the wrong way when the race director lied to me like that. And now I have a new case. I'm been registering for races the rest of the year, and also early next year I'm planning on doing the J&J 100K in Bandera. I'm also doing the Javelina 100 in Phoenix, which is the end of October, and then doing the Bandera 100K on January 10th. Those are the races I've got signed up for so far. However, some of the races that I signed up for, they don't use UltraSignup. So one of the races, I'm still not shown as being registered. However, when I contact the race director, his third party that he's using shows that I'm registered. I've contacted them 4 or 5 times, and they still have not fixed the registered list. So it's a little bit irritating. So I guess what I'm trying to say is I wish all the race directors used UltraSignup. There's one major race director in Texas, trail racing over Texas, which always uses UltraSignup, and I think it's a big advantage for them. Unfortunately, there's just not any competitors out there to UltraSignup that I think does the same quality of job. I'm speculating, but I guess the reason some race directors don't use them is maybe their commission on the registration is a little bit more than the other third parties. I guess it's kind of like American Express compared to Visa. A lot of people don't take American Express anymore because the commission rate is so high. Anyways, I don't want to harp on that too much, but the race directors out there listening to my podcast, I really wish you would all use UltraSignup. I think they do a great job, and I know the runners like me, we really enjoy seeing the data immediately after the race. I know many of the race directors that don't use UltraSignup post the data after the race, but what I'm trying to say is it's just an overall more organized. It's more organized for the customer, which is the runner, when we can register on UltraSignup and then see our data immediately afterwards. It's just a better experience is what I'm trying to say. Well, that's enough about that. what I want to talk about today is Ultra shoes. I've been using Ultra shoes, so this would be an equipment review for Ultra shoes. I've been using Ultra shoes for more than 2 years now. I selected Ultra shoes because they're famous for wide toe box, and that's true. All of their shoes have a wide toe box, and the lugs on the shoes typically are very well designed. They don't get clogged up. They call them trail clog lugs. I think it's just a well built shoe. If we talk about some of the shoes, they have different types of shoes. What I consider some for shorter running, what I would say 10 to 20K, maybe up to 50K, and then some shoes that are really for the long haul, which is the type of runs that I'm focused on. What I'd like to also say is I'm not sponsored by Ultra. I don't get any kind of benefit from Ultra. I'm just a big fan of their brand. I also use Hoka, and I plan to do an episode on Hoka in the future. I think they all have good shoes and bad shoes. What I'd like to talk about first is the Superior 4. That's a lightweight shoe. It's about 7.9 to 8 ounces, which is 224 grams. It's got a 6mm contour footbed with the trail claw bottom. This shoe, the stack height is 21 millimeters. It's really a lightweight shoe. It's kind of like in road shoes, what you call a track shoe. It's a minimalist shoe, and I use it it was my first shoe I ever bought from Ultra. It was probably a little bit too minimal for me, but I was still learning about what kind of shoe is best for me. And I think it's a great shoe if I go out for a 10K trail run or less. Technical terrain, no problem. I really enjoy the shoe. The upper is a seamless wraparound engineering knit. It's not too soft and it's not too hard. And I've had no problems with the shoe. And the pair that I have, which I believe is a Superior 3.5. It's the one model before the latest model. Has lasted me at least 400 kilometers. I keep track of all my shoes, how much mileage or kilometers I have on them using the Strava Premium feature, which I think is very helpful, and I suggest to all runners. Paying the few dollars extra per month to Strava to upgrade from the free version, there's a lot of benefits, and one of the key benefits is you can monitor how many miles you have on your shoes. Just after your run, you select which shoe you use, and it keeps track of it for you. And I have mine set for 400 kilometers, so after 400 kilometers, Strava will send me an email and say, you should consider replacing these shoes. The next shoe I'd like to talk about is the Lone Peak 4. This is probably one of the most popular shoes that Ultra makes. A lot of their pro athletes use this shoe. It's really a mid-range shoe. I have a pair of the 3.5s and the 4s. It's a great shoe, about 10 ounces, which is 289 grams. The insole is 5mm contour footbed with trail claw lugs. The upper is quick dry mesh, and the stack height is 25 millimeters. This shoe is great from, in my opinion, 20K to 50K. And if you're a lighter runner, what I mean by lighter runner, I'm 190 pounds. So I'm a little bit on the heavier end if I compare myself to most ultra runners. For me, this shoe is great from 20 kilometers to 50 kilometers, but I see a lot of the pros using it for 100-mile races. This is just a great all-around shoe, and they've been tweaking it. It's been good for many years. They've been tweaking it, making it a little bit better. The next shoe I'd like to talk about is the Timp. The Timp 1.5, the 1.0. I'm on my 4th pair of Timps. It's my go-to shoe from Ultra. It is a little bit thicker stack height. The stack height is 29 millimeters. The midsole is EVA, so it's got a lot of cushion for the longer runs. The shoe is a little bit heavier. It's 10.5 ounces, which is 298 grams. The outsole is DuraTread rubber with trail claw lugs. These lugs are great. It's got a rock plate in there. I do a lot of technical running in Texas. We like to say all of our trails are rock gardens. They're just loaded with rocks. And this shoe holds up very well. I'm on my 4th pair. I typically use them 400 or 500 kilometers. And the only wear that I've seen on the Timps is on the top where the toe is. And it's not due to durability issue, it's just that I kick rocks. Especially late in a race when I get tired, I don't pick up my feet as much, and I tend to kick tree roots and rocks, and it'll wear out that section after a while. To be honest, on this shoe, I prefer the model of Timp. I believe it was 1.0, the version before the latest version. I think the upper was a little bit more durable, and I still have several pairs. I bought several pairs when they were changing over to the 1.5. I think it's just a better shoe. The 1.5 is feels a little bit lighter to me. The upper is a little bit softer. It's comfortable, and I've been using it in a few 100 Ks. The only complaint I have about the new Timp is it squeaks, makes noise. And my brother, which is an ultra runner, has some. His is not making any noise, but I spoke to a couple other friends, and they have the same issue. So I don't know if it's when I sweat a lot during the summer races, it's water's getting caught up in the shoe or what, but I recently ran a 69 miler, which is about, I guess, 105K, and the shoes squeaked the whole time. It drove me crazy. So the jury's out on the Timp 1.5. I need to really study why it's making so much noise. It's really irritating. But other than that, the shoe is very comfortable, and the Timp is really a great design, especially the version before, which a lot of people are still wearing. The next shoe I'd like to talk about is the Olympus. The Olympus is the shoe with the most protection. If you're really going for a long run, and it's a shoe that's very similar to the Hoka. It's got a very thick bottom, and this shoe is a little bit heavier than the Timp. It's at 10.7 ounces or 303 grams. It has a very thick EVA midsole. EVA is a type of rubber. I like to say that it's like running on clouds. It's a very comfortable shoe, and what I typically do is in 100K I will run in my Lone Peaks for half the race and jump to Timps, or if the trail is really a technical trail that I think I'm going to get beat up, I will use my Timps for half the race and then switch to my Olympus for the second half of the race. The outsole is Vibram Mega Grip lugs, so very strong gripping outsole. The stack height is the highest one that Ultra makes. It's 33 millimeters, and the upper is reinforced mesh. And one thing with all of the Ultra shoes is there's zero drop, whereas if you compare it to Hoka shoes, Hoka shoes typically have 4 millimeter to 5 millimeter drop. And what that means is it's the angle coming from the middle of the shoe to the back of the shoe. Wearing zero drop shoes takes a little bit of getting used to. Some people say it takes a while, and some people just don't like it. Interesting enough, I wear both shoes. I alternate between Ultra and Hoka almost every day, and I think it helps prevent injuries. You're constantly wearing different types of shoes. I highly recommend, even if you use the same brand, because every shoe is gonna make your feet hit the ground a little bit different, and I really strongly believe it prevents injuries, and I've seen coaches write about that as well. So what I typically do is, on trail running, I probably 75% of the time I'm using Ultra, and I also use the Hoka, the EVA Mafate, which is their big shoe. About 25% of the time I've been trying them out a little bit more, but on the roads it's about 50-50. I'm using the Ultra Escalante 2. This shoe is a 8.8 ounce shoe. Stack height's about 24 millimeters. The upper is engineered knit, and it's a very comfortable shoe. I consider it a lightweight shoe. I typically use it on my lunch runs. And to be honest, when I first tried on this shoe, I was very interested in it because some of the pros use it, and it's, that's one of the challenging things in the running community these days is there are so many pros that are sponsored, have equipment sponsors, and then there's so many ambassadors because of their social media influence. You don't really know if something's good or not. So that's one of the reasons that I was very interested to start a podcast and just tell things the way it is. I'm not influenced by any brands, and I just want to help people, and I enjoy talking about running, and it's a big hobby of mine. But the Escalante, when I first tried it on, to be honest, I thought the upper was too soft and my foot moved around so much. I thought to myself, if I'm running in this, I don't see how my foot's going to be stable running in it. And I saw a pair of Escalante 1s on clearance at REI, and I bought them, and I was really pleasantly surprised. It's a very comfortable shoe. My foot does not move around at all, and the protection and the EVA protection is very minimal, but I don't have any problems with my knees or anything. I usually do lunch runs, 8 kilometers to 10 kilometers, and it's a great shoe for that. My other go-to shoe for running is the Hoka Clifton 5, Clifton 6. I've been using them for years, and it has a 4 to 5 millimeter drop. So I highly recommend alternating shoes. I think it's good for your preventing injuries. So one day I'm wearing Ultra with 0 drop. The next day I'm wearing Hoka with 4 to 5 millimeter drop. It works well for me. Another Ultra road shoe that I use is the Duo. That's a DUO. It's a 8.1 ounce shoe. It's got a really thick sole, and with a 5 millimeter contour footbed, and the upper is knit. It's a little bit stronger upper than the Escalante. It's a pretty good shoe. I prefer the Escalante. The one disadvantage about the Duo, and I've seen a few different versions of it over the years, the sole is very, at least I can talk about the one pair that I have. The sole picks up rocks very easy. It's like little troughs in the bottom of the foot pad, and the outsole. And if you're going down if there's any gravel on the sidewalk, it's going to pick it up and get stuck in the shoe. And running down a trail is impossible in Duos. They will just get clogged with rocks. But other than that, it's a great shoe. Another great thing about Ultra shoes is the Gaiter trap. What that means is they have in the back they have Velcro, and in the front they have a hook mechanism to hook up gaiters. Ultra is one of the few shoe companies that make their own gaiters, and this is a big plus. Some of the big brands such as Hoka don't make gaiters, so you have to go to a third party and find one that'll work for you. But with Ultra, the Gaiter trap is a great system. And they had a 2-point gaiter for a few years, which I still use on some of my shoes, and then now they have a 4-point gaiter trap where the gaiter is connecting on the side of the shoes too. Actually, I prefer the 2-point Gaiter. I think it fit better. The 4-point Gaiter in the front where the hook is tends to be a little bit loose. But overall, both types work for me, and I use both. I highly recommend using Gaiters. Probably 95% of the trail races I do, I wear Gaiters. Probably 100%. I see a lot of people not wearing Gaiters, but if you're running through sand and technical sections with small rocks, you're going to get them in your shoes. I remember my first trail race when I lived in California. It was a 50K. I didn't know anything about trail running. I took a pair of road shoes and just normal socks, and it was a 50K, and I think about 10K into the race, I lost the skin on the back of my ankle. Bad blisters. Didn't know what I was doing. If I'd been wearing Gaiters, that wouldn't have happened. Of course, I was wearing the wrong shoes and the wrong socks, which I've learned over the years to improve on. But Gaiters, it's very important to wear Gaiters, and I see some runners still don't use them, but I highly recommend them. Like I said before, the Ultras have wide toe box. If you're, this is very important. If you have a wide foot, some of the other brands like Hoka, some of their shoes have a neutral, a D width. The Clifton is very good, and the Mafate and a few others that I've tried. But a lot of their shoes are too narrow for me. And a lot of runners will run for years and having problems with corns and stuff, and eventually realize that they've just been wearing shoes too small. If you're having problems with your feet, I highly recommend try to increase the width of the shoe, or vice versa. If you have a very narrow foot, highly recommend try like Salomon shoes. Salomon are beautiful shoes. I've always dreamed of having a pair of Salomons, but that's impossible. They're so narrow that I can never put them on my feet. My feet would be hurting in no time. So it's very important to have a good fitting shoe, and you want to make sure that you have enough space in the thumb's width in the front of the shoe. A lot of people buy shoes too small, but actually they need to be a little bit big, because during a race, especially a longer race like 100K or actually 50K and further, your feet are going to swell, and you need to have that room, otherwise it's just going to catch up with you. And what I do in my races, I usually bring another second pair or even a third pair of trail shoes with me, because what I find is after the race my feet are so swollen that I can't put them in regular shoes anymore. I need to put them in another pair of trail shoes. And of course the trail shoes that I have on are so dirty, and my Gaiters are dirty, socks are dirty. So I take all that stuff off, clean my feet off, and then I put on a fresh pair of trail shoes to go home in, because they have a very wide toe box, and it's no problem if my feet are swollen. But if I try to put on a pair of sandals or my regular shoes, it's impossible. So that's it for Ultra shoes. One thing I would like to also talk about is socks. In the media today, you hear a lot about Exosen skin socks, Drymax, Injinji. I've never tried Exoskin. I plan to. I've heard good things about them, but I'm a little bit skeptical because there's so many ambassadors out there, and I want to try them before I believe it. The same thing I did with Injinji. I've been wearing Injinji for a few years, and they've worked really well for me. There are not a lot of ambassadors out there for Injinji, but I will say that their toe socks are great. They make 3 different thicknesses. They make a regular road, they make a trail, and they make an ultra. And I have all 3. I have found that on the road version, the heels typically have a tendency to wear out and get a hole in them. So for the last year, I only buy the trail version. The ultra version is hard to find. I'm not sure if they discontinued it or just not many REI stores carry them. REI is a great place to buy Injinji socks. I think you can also buy them online. But I'll be honest, I don't put any kind of lube on my feet, and I haven't had any, or I should say very few blisters in my last race. I had one blister in the Habanero 100. It's just so humid, and I had such a bad chafing problem, and I ended up getting one blister in the middle of my foot. But typically I don't really get any blisters in races anymore, and it's due to me wearing Injinji socks. Well, another thing, Injinji socks they're toe socks, so they're gonna put protection between all your toes. But another thing they do, which people don't know until they start using them, is it splays your toes. And what that means is it keeps all your toes separated. Because if you're like me, and my small toe, my pinky toe, I guess you would say, likes to try to curve in. But when I wear Injinji socks, it keeps all of my toes the correct distance and splayed correctly in my shoes, so that it doesn't create a blister or a corn or anything like that. I've had very good luck with them. So like I said, if I just kind of go over some of the key points. Make sure you get the right size of shoes. If you have wide feet, highly suggest trying Ultra shoes. I've had good luck with them. I also highly recommend alternating shoes. Wear one brand. If you only wear one brand, have different models of the brand, and one day wear one, next day wear a different one, and keep track of it. Log it in your running log, or log it in Strava, so that you know how many miles you have on shoes, because shoes wear out. They may be okay for casual wear, but if you're running in them, you really shouldn't run in them more than, say, 400 kilometers. They just wear out. The EVA loses its capability to protect you, and the bottom will start to deteriorate. Another key thing is, if you have narrow feet, try brands that are narrow, like Le Sportif, Salomon. Those are great brands as well. Nike, they typically run narrow, and it's important to have a good fit. Another thing I would like to talk about is chafing. One thing you want to do before your races is make sure that you're protected against chafing. You can lube your feet. I've read books on how to take care of your feet. They say, put trail toes or squirrel's nut butter on your feet. I typically don't do that. My brother does that and has good luck with it. So you gotta try it during training. Just like they say with hydration and nutrition, try it during training. If it works for you during training, then it'll work for you in the race. Don't try something new in the race. And it doesn't hurt to over lube, and make sure you lube, under your arms, between your legs, and make sure that if you have shorts with a drawstring, make sure that it's tied tight or outside, so that it doesn't chafe your inner parts. Also, one of the most problematic places for chafing is actually your butt crack. I typically put a big chunk of lube in there. It feels kind of weird when you put it in there, but if you do that during the race, it tends to melt, and it will keep you very lubed there. That's the most irritating part of a really long race in regards to chafing, is if you really chafe your butt crack. But it's really painful, and it's really hard to prevent. But the best way to try to minimize it is to use a lot of lube in there. Under your arms, a lot of people don't understand. Of course, your nipples. I'm talking about men. Some people put Band-Aids on their nipples. I've never done that. I just put lube there, and I found that if you're using a pack, like a Nathan pack, it typically will stay tight and keep your shirt in place. You're at most risk of nipple chafing if you're not wearing any pack, because what happens is your shirt gets wet, and it moves up and down. It's like sandpaper, and that's extremely painful. These are issues that if you're running half marathons and marathons, you don't run into these issues. But if you're going to be out there 5, 10, 15, 20, even 30 hours, you have to pay attention to these issues or you'll regret it. That's it for today's podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you would, please subscribe to my podcast. It's available on iTunes, Anchor, many different platforms, almost every platform, including Google Podcast. But I'd appreciate if you'd subscribe and leave a review. It helps me get traction in the outdoor category, so more people will listen to my podcast. If you'd like to follow me on social media, on Instagram, I'm Runner RWE. Same for Twitter, Runner RWE, and I'm available on Strava. Just look for the Mile 62 Strava Club, and you'll find me. My name on Strava is Richard at Runner RWE. Wish you a great weekend of running, and stay tuned for episode 3. Bye-bye.